Recording in progress.
Recording is in progress. Welcome to the January 22nd, 2026 meeting of the Planning Board. Call the meeting to order. And Frank, I'm going to ask you to sit for Ryan. And Logan, if you could sit for Paul. And the city manager will be joining us. She is anticipating being a little bit late, as she is. So we'll get started. First item on the agenda is required by law. We need an election of officers for chair and vice chair.
If I might make a motion to vote that Rick Chilman continues as chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
I'd also make the motion that Tony Coviello stays on as vice chair.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Congratulations.
You can stay in your jobs. Thank goodness.
We have, so we have 3 sets of minutes, and we received a letter this evening from Tom Morgan. I don't know if folks have had a chance to read it. He was here before everyone. All I know about that is I did attend that September 16th meeting, which was not a site walk, but it was a meeting with the master plan consultants. We held it in front of the North Church at Market Square, and it was posted, my understanding, checking with staff. So that's a factual error. I'll leave it to the board what you'd like to do. He's suggesting we not adopt those minutes, but we have 3 sets, so whatever the board's pleasure.
We just accept the letter and place it on file.
Okay. We have 2 other sets of minutes too, so.
Well, no, for the minutes themselves, he's talking about the letter.
The letters.
Because at city council, we usually just accept them and place them on file. But considering there's no factual error, I know it was noticed, it was a public hearing, anyone could have shown up. I was not there myself, but I'm sure anyone could have shown up. I don't see a reason why.
It wasn't a secret meeting.
It was not in any way. It was in the middle of Market Square.
Could I make a motion to accept all meeting minutes, all 3?
You just did, right?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And was that a motion to place the letter on file?
It was.
Did that have a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We have determination of completeness, site plan review request of Ralph 1912 LLC as owner for property at 175 Fleet Street, requesting site plan review approval for the addition of 2 new food services structures with associated site improvements. This property is in Assessor's Map 117, Lot 8, and lies within the Character District 5. I'm going to just go through these. The next one is request of Colbia and Enterprises LLC as owner for property at 1980 Woodbury Avenue, requesting site plan review approval for the redevelopment of the site to include 5,500 square feet of convenience store and 6 fueling islands and associated site improvements. That property is on Assessor's Map 239, Lot 11. It is in the Gateway Corridor G1 District. The request of PNF Trust of 2013 and 282 Middle Street LLC as owners for property located at 84 Pleasant Street and 266 to 278 State Street. The Floros Building requesting site plan review approval that includes merging 4 lots and redevelopment of the site to include remodeling of existing structures and new construction to mimic the former Times Building and a new structure on the corner of State and Pleasant Street. This includes 17 dwelling units, a retail commercial restaurant space on the ground floor, and 17 parking spaces and a car storage system with associated site improvements. That property is on map 107, lot 7780, and lies in the Character District 4, Historic and Downtown Overlay Districts. Can I have a motion to accept those applications as complete?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Accepted. We have public hearings. For the members of the public, our rules on the public hearings. We have presentation by the proponent, questions by planning board members, public comment, 2 for or against the application. Provide your name and address for the record. If you wish to speak during the public comment period, 2nd or 3rd rounds, you must speak during the 1st round. All comments are directed to me. The 1st round is 3 minutes, up to 3 minutes, oral comment only. The 2nd round, if we need it, is maximum of 5 minutes, and a presentation is allowed if you need it. And the 3rd round, again, if needed, is a maximum of 5 minutes, oral comment only. At the close of that, the hearing is closed and the board takes action. First item on the First hearing we have is request of Perkins Quokka Joint Revocable Trust as owner for property at 224 Broad Street, Unit 3, requesting a wetland conditional use permit from Section 1010-1750 for the replacement and expansion of an existing 192 square foot sunroom and the demolition of a 286 square foot rear deck with new construction for a 384 square foot addition to the existing sunroom, a new 367.5 square foot rear deck, and regrading of a portion of the site, including a retaining wall, stone drip edge, and underdrain for stormwater control, replacement of the existing lawn with a micro clover seed mix, and a planting plan. This property is on Assessors Map 131, Lot 13-3, and lies in the General Residence A or GRA District. Who is here to present this application?
Hi, good evening, Chair Rebecca Perkins Quokka. My address is 224 Broad Street. And honorable members of the board, I was before you last year to present exactly the same application. There have been absolutely no changes to this application. For those of you who may know me personally, this has been a very busy year, and we forgot to resubmit prior to the expiration of the permit in August. And so here we are in front of you essentially asking for an extension, which we did through a reapplication so that we can have time to pursue this permit. There have been no changes to what you approved.
Thank you. Any questions of the applicant? You have your hand up, Bill? I guess not. I thought you had your hand up. Bill, if there are no questions, I'll open the public hearing. Is there anybody here or on Zoom who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Nobody on Zoom? Last call. Anybody here or on Zoom wish to speak to, for, or against this application? I'm going to close the public hearing.
I'd make a motion we vote to find the conditional use permit application meets the requirements set forth in section 10.1017.50 of the ordinance and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
And then I'd make a motion we vote to grant the conditional use permit with the following enclosed 2.1 stipulation that's in the memo.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. With the request of John Galt LLC as owner for property at 14 Market Square, requesting a conditional use permit from section 10.112.14 to allow 0 parking spaces where 4 are required. This property is on Assessors Map 107, Lot 29, and lies in the Character District or CD5, Downtown Overlay and Historic Districts. Who is here to present this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. John Shagnon from Haley Ward, representing John Galt LLC tonight. With me is Tracy Kozak, project architect. As mentioned, the property is located at map 107, lot 29, 14 Market Square. We're here to ask for a parking conditional use permit under section 10.12.14 for 0 parking spaces where 4 are required. The project is the conversion of some office space into apartments. The conversion causes 8 required parking spaces where there aren't requirements for office space in the DOD. 4 space DOD deduction means we're asking for 4 parking spaces where 8 would be required. There's no room on the site for any parking. It's a building in the urban core, right at Market Square. We performed a parking demand analysis, and that demand analysis was based on converting the 9,212 square feet of office space into 7 dwelling units. The proponent, Mark McNabb, is here. The demand analysis was presented to the Technical Advisory Committee and approved. Included in your package is that demand analysis, and it shows that we are actually causing a demand reduction of 8 spaces as a result of this conversion. The planning board can grant this relief requested. The criteria is listed in your package in the cover letter. I could go through it if you'd like, but essentially the criteria revolves around the fact that we are decreasing parking demand and that this site is in the urban core and is close to parking opportunities. The supporting plans and show floor plans, elevations, which if you want to put them up, the project architect could speak to. But that's our presentation, keeping it brief, and we're here to answer any questions. We request that you approve this tonight.
Thank you. Questions to the applicant? No questions to the applicant? We're going to open the public hearing. Is anyone here or on Zoom who would like to speak to, for, or against this application? One more call. Anybody here on Zoom wish to speak to, for, or against this application?
Our ratings have really dropped. No one's on Zoom.
Apparently. Going to close the public hearing. Did you want to speak during the public hearing? Close the public hearing.
Mr. Chair, I just want to recognize that we did receive a letter and with the subject matter, if not directly related to this property, just in case the letter writer is watching, we did receive it.
Yes, I saw that. Thank you.
With that, I guess I'll make a motion. Vote to find the conditional use permit application meets the requirements set forth section 10.1112.14 of the ordinance and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Discussion? Yes, Bill.
I'd like to just understand the principles that we apply in these cases. I think we're all in agreement that parking is in short supply downtown. I think we're also all in agreement that a building that is downtown, you can't dig out the basement and put parking under it, so there's, really no practical approach to that. And this would, at least on paper, reduce the demand, the theoretical demand from what it is to what it would be. But the reality is that we keep adding parking requirements downtown in small increments, and I don't know. To me, I don't understand how we can do that. It's not in conformance with the requirement, and it's putting more burden in an area that's overburdened already. I do understand why, the practicality of not being able to add parking within an existing building downtown, but that's a uniform, problem, and I'd just like to be sure that we apply a consistent principle to everybody that comes forward with this kind of a proposition in the downtown area, and that we not just do it yes here and no there. So if I could understand the principle that we're applying, I'd be a lot better off.
I can start with a response to that. I think the criteria are in the applicant's letter. He set them out, set them forth, and offered to go through them, which he didn't do, which I'm actually appreciative that he didn't. But they are there. I think this is a bigger question that we've addressed with the downtown parking study that was completed about a year or so ago, and also with the recommendation of the capital improvements plan recently to put a $3 million placeholder for the next parking garage, public parking garage, which ties into the parking study recommendation that was adopted, I believe, by council, that said that downtown parking should be treated as public infrastructure and not to be treated as private. The problem with private parking in a downtown mixed-use environment is it ends up being dedicated for one use with one set of times of day, as opposed to shared public parking, which gets more consolidated use. It takes up less land. So that's part of the rationale for it. If you feel that there's one of these criteria that the applicant hasn't addressed properly, say so. But that's the 30,000-foot view.
Well, I certainly appreciate the impracticality of having every individual piece of land have its own parking, and the beneficial aspect of consolidating that parking into one place and having it be designed for that purpose. I'm just uncomfortable with continuously adding downtown. And if the answer is yes for this, then I can't distinguish, for the next, 5 people that come in with comparable proposals.
Nor should you. If it's a comparable proposal, it should be treated the same way. And, the other thing that the benefit of the public parking is the revenue stream that generates for the city, which is significant. So that's another part of the puzzle. If anybody else wants to jump in, please feel free. Any other questions or?
Is there a concept of requiring proof of contracting with parking in other locations?
We did that, sorry.
We tried it.
We did that with 238 Deer Street, and it was not necessarily carried through in an effective way. 238 Deer Street was 14 units, 14 micro units or 17 micro units, where we stipulated that they needed to identify at least 14 off-site assigned parking spaces for those residential units. They did, but then those units ended up being for sale. So the manner in which it was carried out did not really follow through to the stipulation as it was written, but in other cases we have not.
Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
That's one nay and the rest.
Just to be clear, we were voting on the findings of fact.
Fact,
Correct.
exactly.
Right.
So, I don't know if anybody wants to revisit their vote. It wasn't a vote on the conditional use permit. It was saying, do we have all the information?
I would vote, in that case, I would like to change the vote to yes, if I can do that.
Actually, wasn't the motion for 10?
It was for the finding of facts.
Findings of
Findings
fact.
of fact.
Okay.
So that's,
Could have been.
we moved on
Okay,
from
we
that.
now have the findings of fact.
All right, vote to grant the conditional use permit as presented.
Second.
Now discussion on that, which we already just had. Anything further on that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is the request of Columbia Enterprises LLC for property at 1980 Woodbury Avenue, requesting site plan review approval.
250 McKinley?
250 McKinley first?
Look, did I?
You're jumping ahead.
I'm sorry. Getting ahead of myself here. Request of Christopher J. and Rachel Delisle as owners for property at 250 McKinley Road, requesting wetland conditional use permit from section 10-1750. The demolition of existing sunroom and deck, and the addition of 2 new sets of landings and stairs, as well as a concrete pad for an AC unit, all within the 100-foot wetland buffer. This application reduces 224 square feet of impervious area through demolition, while introducing approximately 48 square feet of new impervious. In total, this project will result in a net loss of 176 square feet of impervious within the wetland buffer. This property is Assessors Map 250, Lot 117, is in the Single Residence B or SRB district. Who's here to present this application?
My name's Chris Delisle, I'm the property owner at 250 McKinley. And I promise the next applicants I go quick. We are in the middle of a renovation, and we are proposing removing the sunroom off the back of our property and the deck, and replacing with 2 smaller egresses and a small concrete pad poured to support those egresses, as well as a small 6 square foot pad for our air conditioning. The overall effect, as you mentioned, is a net gain into the 176 square feet to the impact of the wetlands. And our properties are around 8,000 square foot of our 9,000 square foot property sits within the wetland buffer or Nelwyn Park. It's basically all swamp. The adjoining wetlands is about 6 acres of wetlands. As part of prior projects in that backyard where this work is being done, we've done substantial grading. We've added a lot of native plantings and a lot of mitigations. We have rain gardens, berms, swales to slow any of the water that would go into the wetlands. And we did that voluntarily just as part of our backyard, and we appeared before the commissions before to do that. And additional projects that we've done, including driveway in the front, which doesn't go to the wetland, we've actually put rain gardens there too, knowing that essentially water flows to storm drains that flows to wetlands. So we're very conscious about protecting the wetlands. This is a give back as part of our project to continue that spirit, with a small ask to put some stuff back so that we can get out of our house to enjoy our patio in the backyard. With that, I'll take any questions.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? I'm going to open the public hearing. Anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Last call. Anybody on Zoom? I'm going to close the public hearing.
Vote to find that the conditional use permit application meets the requirements set forth in section 10.1017.50 of the ordinance and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Vote to grant the conditional use permit with the following condition 2.1 outlined in the staff memo.
Second.
Discussion?
I just think it's a pretty easy review for us, reduction in the use of the setback. So overall, a net improvement. Not much else to talk about.
Very straightforward, well presented.
Yep. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you. I can find my place again. Request of Ralph 1912 LLC as owner for property at 175 Fleet Street, requesting site plan review approval for the addition of 2 new food service structures with associated site improvements. This property is on Assessor's Map 117, Lot 8, and is in the Character District 5, the Downtown Overlay District, and the Historic District. Who is here to present this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. John Shagnon from Haley Wood, representing Ralph 1912 LLC. With me here tonight is Mark McNabb, project proponent, Tracy Kozak, project architect, and Terrence Parker, project landscape architect. It's tax map 117, lot 8, 175 Fleet Street, known as the Gillies Restaurant. We're here for site plan approval to install 2 new food service structures on the lot, perform some renovations to the Gillies existing site structure, including bathrooms, and as mentioned, 2 takeout restaurants. Some site improvements are going to include a trash area, seating on site, improvements to landscaping, additional bike racks. Your package includes some great renderings of the visual impact of this, which the HDC approved at the January 7th meeting. The proposed license area agreement and plan, as there's some synergies here because of the proximity to the parking garage of this site and land that is controlled by the city. There's a green building statement and lighting specs all in your package. Going through the plan set, we could, Peter. You got a cover sheet, standard boundary survey, site plan, and a few things to point out here on the site plan. As mentioned, the proponent is going to create a fenced-in trash area here, which is a little northwest of the property line on property that is adjacent to the High Hanover parking garage and is not really utilized by the city. But in a license, the applicant would like to create a trash storage area. It would be gated off. There'd be key fob entry, and it would be available to businesses in the area to use. There's landscaping improvements. In the back here, there's an existing landscape area, but we are making it more robust and replanting it, putting in some temporary planters here that would be summertime only, but putting a landscape area in front of the Gillies Restaurant and a landscape area in front of this takeout restaurant, excuse me. This is the second takeout restaurant. So those are the 2 new structures. The next sheet is the landscape plan showing future surface treatments. The project is tied into the look and feel of Newbury Way. You might recall a lot of members were here for the 115 Congress project, where the applicant is going to introduce some site elements to Newbury Way. This project is going to begin that construction in this area and take that form and content and bring it onto the Gillies site. Next slide, floor plans. Then we have next elevations. Next, some other views of the proposed takeout restaurants. Next. Some site renderings. Next. And I'd like to leave it here at this slide. This shows a really nice night view rendering of what this would look like at night. Hopefully it will be a night destination as it has been in the past. It'll be much safer and offer a variety of foods. Also in the set, but we don't need to look at them, is a utility plan. That plan has been approved by the Technical Advisory Committee for connections to the city utilities. And there's a plan showing the Newbury Way off-site improvements. At this stage with this project, it's only the improvements on the Gillies, adjacent to the Gillies site in Newbury Way, but we're showing Newbury Way being lowered to its future elevation as a part of this particular project, so that can kick off the future project there and do a lot of the pre-site work as a part of this project. This proposal went to the Technical Advisory Committee. They recommended approval on December 3rd, subject to 7 conditions of approval. And the staff memo that you have in your packet correctly identifies those conditions of approval that are appropriate to bring forward with your approval here tonight, which we asked for. Other members of the team are here if you should have any other questions. I'll keep the presentation short and answer any questions you might have.
Questions of the applicant? Yes, Tony.
John, can you describe the lighting on site and are there any cameras, security cameras?
I can't answer the security camera question, but the night visual shows you it's a lot of sort of soffit building mounted lights. And then in the adjacent Newbury Way, there's going to be catenary wire supported circular lights.
I'm more concerned about the restroom area and the alleyway kind of formation between the existing, I'll call it the garage addition, if we've been around here long enough, you know what I mean?
Yes.
Yeah, the garage addition and
Yep.
the restrooms.
Yeah, I would imagine that's going to be the same level of illumination that you see here on the front side of the Gilly restaurant. I don't think it's depicted in this exhibit, but the lighting
Forgive me,
level here
yeah.
is the same on the back. But Tracy can speak to that.
Thank you.
She's coming up here to the podium.
Sure. Just to clarify, all 4 sides of all structures will be illuminated with recessed soffit downlighting. There are also on the back of the restroom addition, there are recessed vertical sconces in the corner boards to provide additional light at all levels. There won't be any dark spots. We're illuminating it for safety.
So did I hear just sconces on the back?
There is perimeter linear LED downlighting that emanates out from the soffits on all structures, and additionally there are vertical linear lights on the corners that shine out.
I'm used to seeing, and maybe it's been eliminated as a requirement, and unaware to me, I'm used to seeing a kind of a lumens plan with lighting on the site. And is that something that has been removed as a requirement for the city?
No, it's not. It is a requirement.
It's not been removed.
It's not been removed.
This area has a history, and we're obviously have a lot of transitional pedestrian going in and out of the garage, coming up and down the new alleyway. I think overall this is fantastic, I just have some sensitivity about the, creating a vulnerable location.
Okay. So, no, the lighting requirements have not been eliminated. In this particular application, we provided the night illumination exhibit, the rendering. Previously, Newbury Way had a full lumens plan, and that showed that the applicant is making that safe. Right now, it's not safe, and hasn't been safe, but it will be much safer. So the Newbury Way alley is a separate part of the 1 through 15 Congress approval that did have all of those. I guess if it's a concern, we would ask that you just ask us to create a lumens plan that could be reviewed by city staff.
Yeah, that's fair. And then a follow-up to that, is this considered a public restroom, or is it their restaurant restroom? All right,
That's a good question.
Will it be
So-
advertised?
So I don't think there'll be a sign in Market Square saying restroom here, but it's a food court type of arrangement, so the public is welcome to walk on and use the facility.
Got it.
Yep.
They're not gonna, yeah, I guess it's maybe outside of our purview, but they're not gonna have to go inside and get a key or something.
Oh. The applicant is saying, no, they won't be required to go to the kiosk and get a key to use it.
And locked when the restaurant's closed?
Absolutely, yes.
Thank you.
Yes, Beth?
A couple questions. So between the garage entrance and the side of the existing building where you're putting all the trash receptacles in that area, am I right that I see the fences and the gates, but will you prevent the general public from being able to get in that area? So basically they can access back where the bathrooms are, but not where that is? Is that the way it's meant to be?
Yes. Thank you for blowing it up, Peter. Yeah, so the fencing
It's right
comes here, right to the building, and then the access to the bike racks are part of the public access, and then there's fencing here that closes it off in the back, but otherwise you can walk around to get to the bathrooms through the
Okay.
site.
And then my only other question is, as we anticipate the possibility of almost 12 inches of snow this coming Sunday night, that makes you want to think about, how you plan on dealing with snow on this site, because it doesn't look like, other than that landscape area in the back, there doesn't seem like there's a lot of places that you could get rid of it if it's going to be open year-round. So if you could just tell us a little bit more about that.
Sure. Luckily, the development team is used to downtown maintenance, and they have a full maintenance team, and I would imagine there'll be a lot of total removal of snow at this particular location when you get that big a storm.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Andrew?
This is a really well-done package. The renderings were really helpful. You mentioned and alluded to the ADA accommodation for Newbury Way. Is the pad where Gillies currently is and the new bathrooms and circulation on that parcel going to be ADA compliant as well?
The bathrooms that are proposed in the back addition
Yes.
are going to be. The takeout restaurants are, but there's no change proposed to the existing access to Gillies.
Yeah. Just making sure that, generally speaking, ADA individuals can access the site from Fleet Street once transformed from the newly created Newbury Way, and then once they're on the site, they'll have the
Yes.
ability to, yeah.
So there is less than 2% slope access coming from Newbury Way here, at grade access here and here. So it is accessible from the surroundings, absolutely.
And then my only other comment was sort of in relation to the bathroom question about public usage. I totally empathize not wanting to broadcast it to the public world, but generally speaking, having some wayfinding signs either on an arm on Fleet Street, just marketing and highlighting the 2 new restaurants and certainly what it is you're creating, I think would be an awesome exposure opportunity as Fleet Street is redone. You don't have to put public bathroom access by any stretch of the imagination, but wayfinding signs we've seen around town become fairly helpful, so however we can do that too.
Good idea, thank you.
Bill and then Joe.
Would you talk a little more about the cameras? I know Tony asked and you didn't have an answer on that.
Oh,
but
I'm sorry,
it's
I'm
kind
not
of an
aware. I would let somebody else on the team, so there isn't going to be cameras.
It will not be.
No, it will not be. No.
It's
It'll
kind
be
of
well lit and maintained, and,
something of an attractive nuisance.
well, I'm sure that if it came to be, it would be done, but at this juncture in the first initial development plan, it's not anticipated to be a problem that needs that solution. That's not saying that that solution would not be available if the problem was identified. Does that make sense to you?
No.
I don't understand what you just said.
We're not proposing cameras now, but if it turns out that cameras are needed, they'll be put up.
Given the site plan and the improvements you're proposing, I don't see a huge need for cameras. If you choose to put cameras up, that's the decision of the applicant, in my mind, you know.
Can I just make a comment around that?
Yes.
Let's keep in mind that the backside of that building now, there's people actually with windows on that building that can actually see down into this area, so it's going to be a lot more visible, and I think we're forgetting about the changes to the adjacent building as well, so we should remember that.
If I may, continue this conversation?
Sure.
I don't know what time the future closing date of this will be, but it may be that this area becomes known as having a public restroom. And, you know, you're out late at night downtown, oh, you know, I'm gonna go behind Gillies, there's restrooms there. And then all of a sudden the restrooms are locked. So is this the place where everybody goes and privately urinates at 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning, where, yeah, there's windows above, but most people are gonna be asleep. So it just seems like a place that's ripe for, you know, a period of night where, you know, you're not going to have a lot of eyeballs on it. It's hidden, and there's a lot of activity very close to it. And so I just feel like it needs a little bit more thought, in my opinion, on that one region.
Like a motion sensor?
I think that's a lighting question more than a camera question. And
Yeah.
in my mind, anyway, you know, I think the lighting, they've addressed it to a certain extent. It maybe could be bolstered somewhat. You know, that the back area is going to be a little bit, especially late at night, early in the morning, you know, sort of a hangout. But there's plenty of places downtown for the errant person who wants to do their business, so to speak. So
Are you advertising?
I hope not.
Yeah, Mr. Chairman?
Well, we don't have, the public hearing is over, if I remember.
No, I don't believe it.
We haven't had it yet.
We haven't had it, okay.
Oh.
Please
I'd
help.
like to respond if it's okay.
Okay.
I think we have to take into account what's there now and what this developer is going to do to this area. What's there now is an attractive nuisance. This is part of a grand scheme to make this a pedestrian-friendly and safe area. So I think we should embrace that and vote to move this along. And motion sensor lighting is a great idea.
I agree that presently we're at the 5-yard line, and you're bringing it to the 1-yard line. I just want to bring it, you know, make a touchdown.
Joe and then Frank.
A lot of my questions have been answered. I don't see it written anywhere in the application. I know there's licensing agreements to be had. I want to make sure that there's no, I've been to a lot of venues like this in other cities. They're very exciting. They're wonderful, as this one will be. Typically it's very common that there's music at venues like this. I just want to be on the record that there will not be music, amplified music on this site. That does not mix well with downtown residential properties. It hasn't in the past, and I'm sure it won't in the future if it's abused. The renderings are wonderful. It's a very fair weather use depicted here. I'm wondering if the applicant had considered any kind of shading, fabric stretching between. I would imagine sitting in the full heat in the sun there, it's a very open, sunny spot. It might be overwhelmingly hot. I don't know if, and it's, you're not asking for it now, but it might be something you consider in the future. Go ahead.
Yeah, if you can go to the landscape plan, Peter, I think it depicts tables, which
Yep.
could have umbrellas. It's a good
There,
point,
okay.
you know?
The other comments have been answered already, the hours of the restrooms and the snow management and the garbage management, those have been answered. Thank you.
Frank?
Just a kind of a clarifying question on the bathroom discussion. Would the outside lights be totally turned off after the restaurant's closed?
The developer says no, it's going to be kept safe. Yep.
You mentioned that the grading for Newbury Way is going to begin here, and with those grades, it's going to be about looks like a 6, 7, or 8 foot cut. Are you stopping at the end of this property for now? And
No, this, if you want to pull up the plan and profile, this project is, a part of this project is going to be lowering the grade in Newbury Way, as shown on the plan and profile.
so I misunderstood. I thought you said you were stopping with this. You're starting with this property, but it's going to continue through.
Yeah, sorry if you misunderstood. What I was saying is that the improvements to the finished grade will be a part of this project, but the work to lower the grade and do all the exploratory work to accomplish the lowering is a part of this project. And then secondary to that is coming back to complete the 115 Congress project and put in the finished materials.
So it is and it isn't related to this project, but just so I understand it. You'll lower the grade adjacent to the property, which you have to do, and then you continue lowering the grade. You probably close this off for a while you're figuring things out with utilities and other things that have to be worked out before you do finished grades. Is that
It'll
fair?
kind of be a two-step process. The first step associated with this is lowering the grade, and then it will be treated with an asphalt material. Construction will probably commence on some of the adjacency buildings, and then at the right time, it will be repurposed with utility installations and finished surfaces. So it's kind of a three-step.
Okay, but, so
Make sense?
the initial question, there won't be a stop with a vertical drop-off that has to be,
No, it won't
That
be. It
won't
will be a smooth grade.
okay.
There will be probably a stop, though, because it will be a construction zone.
Pedestrians won't be able to walk through, but there won't be a cliff to fall off if they happen to
Correct.
wander through at night.
Correct. Yes,
Okay.
yes, absolutely, yep.
And the only other question I had, one of the plans say public access on the way stations, and the other says semi-public, and you mentioned key fobs. How does that work? Who gets the key fobs? Is that something that'll be part of your license with the city?
Absolutely. I think it would be intended for businesses in the general area. Right now, there's a dumpster that is in Newbury Way that this would replace that. So that's one of the things that is necessary to do to repurpose Newbury Way to a pedestrian corridor is to get rid of that dumpster that's there now. And that services the 115 Congress building. So those trash functions would be moved to here. There's some changes to the Fleet Street businesses recently. There was a business that was there that's not there anymore that would have benefited from this, and they'd be open to use it. But it would be up to the council in the approval process to decide that methodology of how the businesses get to access the space, because it is city property.
Assuming that works out, though, this would be trash for this property, the adjacent property that's losing its dumpster, and then whatever else is left over for other people.
Correct.
Okay. My comment on the signs, Andrew, I think the architecture provides better than a sign for people walking by and driving by. I personally wouldn't see a need for a sign, but
Okay.
it's up to, well, you don't have to cave. I mean, that's just my opinion. So whatever you guys want to do on that. Yes, Joe?
I should have asked a little bit more about the trash pickup and where the truck might go. The truck isn't sitting in Fleet Street while the totes are being wheeled to it. Is the truck able to get off the street onto the site to manage the trash containers? Is it backing into where the double doors are?
No, the truck would be, it's going to be a two-lane, Fleet Street is two-lane, one each way. So yes, there would be an interruption, just like there is when the city does pick up in the downtown.
Yeah, that's my concern.
Yeah.
It's awful.
Is Fleet Street not going to be changed?
If I may, right, it will be changed. It's, the reconfiguration will have wider sidewalks in one lane?
One lane?
One way. I think it was something to be managed.
Okay.
So the totes are wheeled out to Fleet Street
Yes.
while the truck sits in the street.
Yes.
Are there specific hours that that's allowed, or?
It happens pretty early.
I know the dumpster immediately across the street, the restaurant immediately across the street, the dumpsters are emptied at 3 in the morning, full of bottles, and they smash, they're loud, they're extremely loud, and the residents in the area are pulling their hair out. So it's important to know how this will impact. I like the idea of how the trash is being managed, but it comes with the inconvenience of having to empty all of those totes in a very central area.
Well, I think it's good that the city manager's hearing your concerns, because I think there'll be discussion at the city council, so I thank you for bringing that up.
Thank you.
Any other questions of the applicant? Thank you. It's quite a plan. It's a nice plan. And open the public hearing. Is anybody here or on Zoom who wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? We're on a roll tonight. Last call. Anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to, for, or against this application? Nobody on Zoom. Going to close the public hearing.
If you're amenable, I'll make a motion for findings of fact. Vote to find that the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulations, section 2.9, evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Discussion on the findings. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Vote to grant the site plan approval with the following conditions. I want to read them because I think we might want to add to them and make sure that these don't need to be modified. Conditions to be satisfied subsequent to final approval of site plan, but prior to the issuance of building permit or the commencement of any site work or construction activity. 2.1, is it okay that I read them?
Yes, you may read them.
If applicable, any easement plans and deeds for which the city is a grantor or grantee shall be reviewed and approved by the planning and legal departments and accepted by city council. Site plan, 2.2, the site plan and any easement plans and deeds shall be recorded on the registry of deeds by the city or deemed appropriate by the planning department. 2.3, all the work and improvements proposed on the city property, garbage totes, bike racks, and landscape will require city council approval. 2.4, the 2 kiosks will need to be individually licensed per health department requirements. 2.5, any fencing as required by the liquor commission or used to divide the site is required to go to the HDC. 2.6, a shoring plan stamped by a structural engineer should be provided to ensure that there are no undermining of any structure along Newbury Way. 2.7, a construction management mitigation plan, CMMP, required. The applicant shall prepare a CMMP for review and approval of the city's legal and planning departments unless the city staff determines that such a plan is not needed. I would like to add to that list, and maybe others would as well. 2.8 would be that the applicant submit a lighting plan showing lumens, particularly in the rear area between the restroom and the rear of the property, and that the amount of illumination satisfies the department staff for safety. That the lighting back there, I'll call it also part of 2.8, that the lighting in that area be maintained after hours of the business in all periods of darkness. I don't know if there's better language for that. I think you get the gist of it. 2.9.
24 hours.
2.9, no outdoor music.
No amplified.
No amplified outdoor music. I don't know, I had a note, did we want to discuss the trash? We want to leave that to city council?
I don't know if there's language in our current rules that at least limit the hours of trash removal. This is potentially a high concentration of a lot of waste. It could take 40 minutes or more to empty these and deal with them. You could just have, a lot of people live in the immediate area, including this development will have people living there too.
I would think something you could address in the license agreement, that provision,
Great.
rather than here, but.
Which means we don't address it.
That's all I have for my motion.
A second.
A discussion on, we have 7 pre-written, two additions.
Can I make a suggestion
addition.
that the lighting one goes under the first section? So they would submit that before they get a building permit, so we have the lighting plan to review.
That's fine.
So that would be, you'd have 2.1 through 2.5 under the first section, and then 2.6, 7, 8, and 9 under the second section.
Fine by the motion maker.
And the intent of the lighting is just to provide adequate illumination in the rear area of the building. And I don't care about the lumen as long as it's adequate.
Yeah,
And staff approves it.
I wouldn't know a lumen that hit me in the head, so that's fine.
I had a,
Yes, Andrew?
and on 2.3, all work and improvements proposed on city property, garbage totes, bike racks, and landscaping will require city council approval. The city manager just sort of clarified that in the licensing agreements. Is that better to say all work and improvements or business conducted proposed on city property? So that it's just all encompassing of future interaction with that city property because the trash is there and has to go out and in, out and in? Or is that stipulated in a license agreement?
Could
think
we
we-
put to consider the hours of removal?
In the
Consider.
license agreement?
Yeah.
Yes.
What,
Yeah,
I
we
was,
could-
what I was getting at is, yes, in fact, if Fleet Street is one way, that's, and then you have a trash truck there, that's not work or an improvement, but it's a business conducted on that street, so
Right.
it's on city property. So I don't know if that would be included in a license agreement.
It is something that would be included.
Perfect. The other question I had was on 2.5, any fencing as required by the Liquor Commission or used to divide the site is required to go to the HDC. Any fencing required by the Liquor Commission may not be permanent to the site. So are we gonna make them go to HDC to use non-permanent fencing?
Does it say permanent fencing? Any
No,
permanent?
it just says any fencing.
It says any fencing. So for example, Toscana downtown where Breaking New Grounds was, now they'll put up a black rail fence and that's temporary. I don't know if they had to go to HCC to do that.
They do.
They did.
Pretty sure they do.
Okay. That's it.
You good with that? Okay.
Sounds
Well,
great.
those fences are actually listed in our outdoor dining policy. What types of fences allowed is in our outdoor dining ordinance now, right? It's an ordinance now.
If this
Can
is
we
private property, or is that included in outdoor dining?
I believe, no, they're
It
not,
would just be on,
which is
the
why it
city
would have
right
to
of
go
way.
to the DHDC then.
Sounds like it's going to the HCC. Okay.
If I could just speak to the motion. This is a lot of people in this community care about this property, the history of the structure on it. I mean, I think we all know it. No one needs to state it here. I also believe that it's probably a business that is difficult to maintain. They're not selling high margin items there. And so I see this as an overall improvement to the city, giving that property a breath of fresh air. And so overall, I think it's a big positive and appreciate the work that's been put into it.
Thank you. Any other comments? So we have the motion. Does everybody understand the motion the way Peter split it? The conditions, rather? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now we're Woodbury, right?
Yep.
Next item is a request of Colbia Enterprises LLC as owner for property at 1980 Woodbury Avenue, requesting site plan review approval for the redevelopment of the site to include 5,500 square feet of convenience store with 6 fueling islands and associated site improvements. This property is on Assessors Map 239, Lot 11, lies in the Gateway Corridor G1 district. I will say that there was a notice problem with this application, so there will actually be a second public hearing, an actual public hearing with full notice. But since this was noticed, and there may be people here or on Zoom who wish to make a comment, I'm prepared and would like to accept public comment if there is any to be given, as well as presentation and back and forth with the applicant, so the applicant can have the benefit of the board's, review of the project.
And voting?
No vote, not tonight, because it's not a public hearing. There was a notice problem.
Got it.
So who is here to present this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Chris Rice with TF Moran. I'm here on behalf of the owner and applicant, Colbia Enterprises.
And just, sorry to interrupt, but are you okay with that, the way I just laid it out?
Yes, we understand the issue that occurred, but we thought it was still a good opportunity if the board's willing for us to just receive feedback, answer any questions and comments, and if there is any butter questions or comments, we're happy to answer those.
Please go
as
ahead.
well.
Sorry to interrupt.
If it's okay with the board, I just have a couple handouts which match what you have, but it might be easier for you to look at than on the screen, but if you'd like me to hold it back.
It was the same thing we all have. We have on our screens locally, so.
This was sent today.
There's a
Okay.
picture of the back of this that just shows one of the recently completed stores if you want to just see what it looks like.
Okay.
Can you just repeat that for the microphone?
Yes, sorry about that.
And Chris, I can hand them out.
Yeah, we can hand them out.
Thank you. As I mentioned, the only added item in what I just handed out, I believe, is I included a photo of one of the recently completed stores, just so you can get a flavor for what the store looks like at the end of completion. They do take great pride in their stores and the aesthetics of the properties that they own and maintain.
I think we're ready.
All right. Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Appreciate the opportunity to present tonight. With me this evening is Michael Gazdaco and Jay Hall from Colbia Enterprises, Jason Cook, who's with TF Moran, Eric Simpson, who is their environmental consultant, as well as their sound study consultant, and we have attorney Chris Drescher with us as well, who's legal representation for the project and was with us through the variance application process. We're here this evening to present a site plan application to redevelop the existing gas station that's currently located at 1980 Woodbury Ave. It's at the intersection of Woodbury Ave and Gosling Road. As you noted, due to a noticing issue, we will be back before you on February 19th for hopefully the vote in the public hearing portion. But again, we did want to take the opportunity just to see if there's any feedback or questions and comments that we could address tonight. I've handed out just some packets for your use. It includes a copy of the existing conditions plan, an aerial plan just to help look at it from a 30,000-foot view, a colored site plan, and a photo of their Nashua site, which opened a few years ago. Existing site is tax map 239, lot 11. It's 1980 Woodbury Ave. It's approximately 0.88 acres in size, and it's located in the Gateway Corridor G1 Mixed Residential District. It currently contains an existing gas station and convenience store. The existing convenience store is about 1,800 square feet, and that has also an existing fueling canopy, which consists of 8 dispenser islands for a total of 16 fueling stations. We're proposing to redevelop the site, which consists of demolishing all the existing structures on site, building a new one-story 5,500 square foot convenience store that will also include a new fueling canopy. That new fueling canopy will have 6 dispenser islands for a total of 12 fueling stations. So basically the convenience store got a little bit larger, but there's 4 less fueling stations than what currently exists today. We have 16 parking spaces are required by code. We have 27, which includes the 12 that we're counting at the pumps. There's 10 parking spaces in the front of the building, and then there's 5 off to the side or the southern portion of the site if you're looking at the plan. We did receive 4 variances from the Zoning Board of Approval in July of 2025. We're happy to go through those in detail if the board wishes. We did present this project conceptually to the Planning Board. I think it was in either late 2024 or early 2025. The major change from what you may have seen then to now is that the prior iteration did have a drive-through component that has since been removed. So there's no drive-through associated with this project. In addition, we did go before Technical Advisory Committee a few times. We went once as a work session, and then I believe we had 2 formal sessions. At one of those meetings, timing worked out very well, where Severino was doing some utility work in Woodbury Ave. To avoid us having to go into Woodbury Ave after they were complete, we worked with DPW and city staff to get the utility work done in advance, so that piece is taken care of should the project move forward. We have addressed all the other TAC comments that we received, and at the December 2nd TAC meeting, they voted to recommend that the planning board recommend approval of this project. We did supply a lighting plan as part of our application package. We also supplied a landscape plan, which calls for 12 proposed trees on site and approximately 145 shrub and flower plantings throughout the site. We also included a traffic memorandum. There's not a very big difference in traffic, given that it's an existing gas station going to a proposed. Most of the traffic's already on the road. Due to the increased size of the convenience store, the traffic memorandum basically states that there's 4 new trips per hour added to the roadway network as a result of this project. But just to keep in mind that the latest DOT figures, there's basically around 11,500 trips per day on this roadway. So it's a very insignificant amount. It's within the range of day-to-day variations in traffic patterns. You know, you could have 7 cars on the road one day and 5 cars another day on the roadway. So it's a very minimal impact on traffic. The site is currently serviced by municipal sewer and water, as well as gas and electrical service. The new facility will also be serviced by those same utilities. And from a stormwater perspective, there's no existing stormwater treatment measures on site. There are a couple catch basins. Basically, all the runoff from the site just goes into the catch basins, and those tie into the city system. We have proposed a stormwater management plan, which includes pre-treatment, treatment, and detention of stormwater prior to releasing it back into the city system. We have reduced or matched all the peak rates of runoff and volumes, and we meet all the city regulations from a site plan regulation standpoint and stormwater treatment standpoint. We don't have any waiver requests as part of this application. There's no wetland or buffer impacts. We feel this will be a major improvement to what currently exists, and we're happy to answer any questions or comments that the board may have.
Questions and comments? Joe?
Yeah, what must be a very frustrating thing for you right now is the amount of people that cut through the lot to avoid the light when there's a backup. I didn't know if your layout, it almost makes it easier to do that because you're no longer driving beneath a canopy or through a gas fueling lane. And the way you have the curb cut at that sweep angle there makes it real easy to shoot in there. I don't know if it's something that you all experience. I've seen it a lot when all of us drive over there. But,
I could ask Colby if they've noticed any operational issues from that regard. I can say that the curb cuts pretty much match what's currently there, although the one that is on Gosling Road has been reduced in width, so it's narrower than what currently exists. But we did have to keep it a certain width to allow for emergency vehicle access and the fueling trucks. So we were somewhat limited to how much we could do, but we did skinny that throat up.
I think you've got some.
Hi, Michael Gazdaco. I'm the Director of Construction for Colbia Enterprises. Right now, we currently own the site, but we don't operate it. We lease it to a third party. Their lease ends early in the spring, and we wish to raise and rebuild this. As Chris mentioned, it's kind of difficult to skinny down any more than it is right now because of our business relies on having a tractor trailer coming in to fuel our product delivery, once a day or once every other day. We will keep an eye on it. We operate all of the stores that we build with our own employees, so it'll be an active area for us to keep an eye on.
As long as you're aware, people they can speed through there very quickly. Just be aware of that. And
I've seen it at other locations, so it doesn't surprise me that you say that.
Thank you. And then the only other question I had was both the lighting impact and the height of the fencing along the Portsmouth Housing Authority complex. I see you're replacing, it's a new fence 8 feet high, correct?
Correct. It's not really a replacement. There's an existing 6-foot fence, but that is on their property.
Okay.
We're proposing a new 8-foot stockade fence on our side, along with additional plantings to try to add some screening and buffering in that area. So we have a number of, I think, the mission arborvitaes along that whole side, which are pretty dense and you know, are thick, and
Great.
year-round buffer. So.
And then just the absence of high lighting that might shine over into people's windows, that would be nice to know that we're not.
Yes, we don't have any lighting on actually on that side of the building. I think there's one overhead, there's a door at the lower left corner of the building as you're looking at the plan, but that's just really an emergency exit overhead door, but it's downcast, so there's really no light going to that section of the site.
Can you pull up the lighting plan?
It is part of the site plans if you have access to it.
Thank you, those are my questions.
Andrew?
You've done a nice job re-landscaping this property, which I'm sure the Housing Authority appreciates, and it'll also look beautiful. And so generally this is more found on like a wetland buffer or any sort of sensitive land, but with the gas station and this being a high trafficked area, I'm wondering if you have a plan for snow storage and snow removal. You know, for whatever reason, or I get it, but gas stations generally don't have a bunch of snow buildup. So I'm wondering if you have some sort of plan, strategy, approach.
Did you want to take that?
Yeah, I can take it again, Michael from Colbia Enterprises. This is a site similar to many of our other sites where there's not a lot of room for snow storage. So mainly we would end up trucking out snow. Our snowplow vendor would be trucking out. We're allowed 24/7 store. So we're always paying attention to the amount. Yeah, exactly. We're always there, and safety and access is always very important to us, or you know, our business doesn't run.
Yeah, more than anything, just you have that white striping up in the upper right-hand corner of the plan set.
That's for truck fueling, so that needs to be clear all the time too. Yeah, that's not snow storage in the front corner of our building. And again, we maintain our sites with a great deal of care because you know, we want them to look good for the foreseeable future.
Sounds great.
I apologize for not mentioning earlier, but as part of the plan, we are also providing an 8-foot wide sidewalk along Gosling and Woodbury. There is a section along Gosling Road now, but it's 6 feet wide, plus or minus, depending on where you are. And on the Woodbury side, the sidewalk kind of dies between the two curb cuts, if you will. There is a lane there to walk in, but it's really adjacent to the travelway. So this really addresses that item and creates a sidewalk path along the perimeter of the property. And then we've also added a sidewalk and a bike rack, and I'll just walk up to the screen to help show you the path.
Don't touch it. Don't touch the screen.
Just so that somebody can walk that way, up and around, and get through the site without having to walk all the way around the perimeter.
You're showing a two-way, I just have a question, quick. You're showing a two-way access adjacent to Woodbury. Like the northbound section right next to, how are vehicles getting in there? Where are they coming from? Where are they going to? That seems...
I'm sorry, the northbound curb cut is actually a right in, is an in only?
No, not the curb cut, right adjacent to your fueling stations, just to the right. You're showing northbound and southbound arrows.
Yes.
So who's going northbound?
That's inner circulation, not in case somebody is at a pump, needs to get somewhere else, or decides to go from the pumps and then go into the convenience store and wants
Not
to
somebody
park.
turning left off Woodbury, coming in the south?
No, that's just inter-site movements, if you will, to allow vehicles to maneuver in the site, but the only exit onto Woodbury is at the southerly entrance. Southerly curb cut, where the stop bar is, right where your cursor is. And there is no left out of the site at either curb cut because there's a median island on both sides.
Yeah, I know, it seems like that's asking for people to get kind of trapped with having to make another loop. Just wondering why you'd end up there, but.
It's identical to the circulation on the opposite corner at Cumberland Farms, actually. It's two-way all around that entire fueling island, right?
Which is pretty standard, I think, just really for site maneuverability within the site, but getting out onto the road.
Okay, you answered it. I expect you had your hand up.
Well, at least one question. So on the entrance and exit that you have onto Gosling Road, I know you have a sign here that will be no left turns, which of course they can't because there's a median there. But I sometimes find that because we have this at the end of one of our streets here locally, and no one listens to what they can't do, but they might listen to what they can do. Can we say right turn only versus no left-hand turn? I know that might sound like a lot, but I'm trying to think that when people are told what they can do, they might listen more so than what they can't do.
We could certainly add a sign at that Gosling Road exit that just says right turn only for clarity.
That would be great.
Yes, Bill?
Is there any consideration of bus stops in that area?
There is a bus stop.
There's a bus stop on Gosling.
One right before the station
Yep.
on Woodbury, or on Gosling.
And it's
On the Newington side.
Okay.
I think it's on the Portsmouth side, just,
Yeah,
Well, there's
Newington
one
does-
on either side. Depends on which direction you're going.
Yeah, eastbound's on our side, I think. isn't it?
There are bus stops, more than one in the area.
And does this design have any impact on the bus stops?
Nope.
Tony?
can you pull up the lighting plan? I was reading your lighting plan wrong, I guess, because it looks to me there's some blue elements at spacing going off the rear of the building, but I heard you just say there's no lighting back there.
Chris, just, if you can go over there, but just take the mic, handheld mic. Yep.
There's also a pointer that you can use.
If you can get it out.
How's that? Can you, do I have to turn it on or anything? Or is it automatically on?
Maybe on the bottom, certain button.
Try it.
Try it now.
Yep.
Yep.
We're at point 0 to point, well, it depends where you look along the property line. There are some just sconces along the back, which I think is more just decorative lighting, correct? On the back. And they're low-level mounting height, I believe. They're 8 feet mounting height. So they are shining down.
There is lighting on the back. That's what I'm trying to
Yes, I apologize for that. Yeah, but it's not, there's no light poles or,
Right.
It's more security lighting, just
Yeah,
shining.
that's what
back
that's what I was hopeful for, that there was some sort of something.
And we
back.
can shine those straight down to illuminate the path and not direct them toward
Right.
the fence. Okay.
Yeah, there's a normal wall pack by the exit door, which is just something that shines down. And then along the back, there's just some decorative lighting, just because if it's completely dark, we find that to be a dangerous situation.
Agreed. That's why I wanted to get the clarification.
I apologize for any confusion.
No problem.
Any other questions or comments?
I have
Yes, Andrew, and
I have
then
a clerical question on our staff memo noting that the ZBA voted to, excuse me, the BOA voted to deny variances 4, 5, 7, 8, and 9. Do we know if those were reconciled and corrected, eliminated, changed in any way?
Yes, those were,
And
well,
sorry,
the drive-through went away,
Yeah,
and then the signage went away. The signage they brought into compliance.
okay, sorry if
So,
I missed that
yep, no.
measurement, I don't know.
Those requests are no longer applicable, I guess, if that,
Right.
Say that again?
they're no longer applicable requests. That's why those ones were,
Got it. Got it.
and you'll be going to the ZBA between now and the next planning board meeting? if
we
things-
will, due to the same noticing issue. We did get our ZBA approval, but we are going back on the 18th for the 2 abutters in Newington that were not noticed, just to have the opportunity to comment, and then we'll be back before you the following night for the formal public hearing from the site. for the
Assuming
site
all
plan.
goes well.
Assuming all goes well, yes.
Okay. Any other questions of the board? Well, did you have anything else you wanted to share with us?
No, we appreciate your time, and see you next month, hopefully.
Thank you.
Well, I'm going to see if there is anybody here or on Zoom who wishes to provide a comment. Nobody on Zoom? Okay. Thank you very much. I guess we'll see you next month.
Have a good night, thank you.
Thank you.
We have a request of PNF Trust of 2013 and 282 Middle Street LLC as owners for property at 84 Pleasant Street and 266, 278 State Street, Floros Building, excuse me, requesting site plan review approval that includes merging 4 lots and redevelopment of the site to include remodeling of existing structures and new construction to mimic the former Times building with a new structure on the corner of State Street and Pleasant Street. Proposals include 17 dwelling units, retail commercial restaurant space on the ground floor, and 17 parking spaces, and a car storage system and associated site improvements. This property is on Assessors Map 107, Lot 77-80, and lies in Character District 4, Historic and Downtown Overlay Districts. Who is here to present this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Members of the Planning Board, John Chagnon from Haley Ward, representing PNF Trust and 282 Middle Street LLC. With me here tonight is Chris Mulligan, project attorney, Michael Keene, project architect, and Amos Blanchard, construction manager. As mentioned, tax map 107, lots 77 through 80. It's 84 Pleasant Street and 266 to 278 State Street. So 4 lots are being merged and the combined lots are being redeveloped. The project consists of 17 dwelling units with retail, commercial, and restaurant on the first floor. This has been a long road since the devastating fire of 2017 that removed a portion of the block, still visible. So hopefully this is the road to constructing a beautiful building at this site. The Times building was demolished in 2024, and the rebuild consists of a building on that corner that's a facsimile of the Times building. Thank you, Michael. And infill for the rest of it. There's some demolition of 84 Pleasant Street. The zoning is CD4, and the site conforms with most of the zoning, but there were variances asked for and granted for some building coverage, open space, some glazing, some height, and percentage of ground floor use as residential. The Board of Adjustment approved those on November 19th of 2024. Vehicles will access the site. Parking is required, 17, provided is 17. The site is going to be hosting a unique parking interior lift system that will provide this parking and storage. We did talk about that when we came to the planning board for the concept portion of this, and that remains the same. Information in your packet about that system, as well as turning movement diagrams for the access to those parking spaces, is included. The site has pedestrian access on 3 sides, State Street, Pleasant Street, and Church Street. Bicycle storage has been provided, and the site is on city water and sewer. TAC approval has been obtained for those utilities. The roof drainage is going to be collected and treated with downspout filters, and there'll be building-mounted lights as that will light the building up and also the adjacencies. The architectural elements of the plans are shown on sheets PB1 to PB8. There's renderings and facades. There's a cornice that the HDC wanted at the top of the building that will require a license from the city of Portsmouth because it projects over the imaginary property line extended. HDC approval was granted on August 6, 2025 for the building design. So going with the plans, sorry Peter, back to the start. The first is a standard boundary survey. And then the next sheet is the license plan. So this sheet shows those cornice licenses and has notes about some other licenses, which I'll talk about later. Then we show an orthophoto plan, it's a view, current view from camera above, a existing conditions plan, a demolition plan, and the site plan. So stopping at the site plan, briefly, this shows the parking location of those parking carousels, so to speak. So access off of Church Street, turning in, and then in the packet it shows the Automotion parking deck, which provides for more parking in the same space by shuffling cars up and down. And then the 17th space is this ADA parking space with the appropriate aisles and access. The architectural plans are next, and we'll just leave it at this plan for now, if you could, Peter. And then if the board wants to go through those in more detail, Michael Keane is here to take you through them and answer any questions. Additionally, that the utilities plan is later in the set, and those are all TAC approved. There's an off-site electrical services plan. This project needs to draw from the surrounding area to provide electrical service to the building, so they're going down to Court Street on the other side of Pleasant from a transformer that was put in for the 93 Pleasant Street project, conduit over to this site, and the transformer is being tucked in a portion of the lot which has building over 2 stories high, but is a cavernous space that is available and approved by Eversource. And then the conduit continues down Church Street, across State Street, and ties into the circuit that is behind the 16 Congress building. That's what that plan shows. Then there's a roof drain plan, and there is a lighting plan with lumens in this set. The building, the lights are all building mounted. And the packet also shows our draft licenses. So the licenses from the City Council will be required for opening of the transformer doors. Usually the transformers are situated back of sidewalk, so they don't interrupt the flow of traffic. So that's kind of something here that needs a license. We're proposing some bollards to protect the gas entrance on Church Street, but the bollard location is in the city right away, and then the aforementioned roof cornice. So there's draft licenses that will have to be approved by the council for those items. Also in your package are the lighting details, the drainage operation and maintenance plan, average grade calculations, and in the process of the approval, the technical advisory committee, one of the neighbors asked about the noise and level of noise that would be generated by the on-site transformer. So the development team engaged a sound engineer to do a study, which is in your packet. And the project went to TAC. TAC recommends approval at the December 2nd, 2025 meeting. And the staff memo that you have correctly identifies the proper conditions of approval that carry forward. And we have no objections to any of those. That's my presentation. If there's a desire to speak to other members of the team, let us know. We're here to answer any questions. We seek your approval tonight.
Thank you. Questions to the applicant team? Yes. Tony?
Is there any plan for EV charging inside the building and the parking area?
You want to answer that, Michael?
Good evening. For the record, my name is Michael Keane. I'm the project architect. The parking rack system has the availability of having EV charging at every station. So we will be providing some. We don't know whether it'll be every space yet or not, but it is available at every space, in each location.
Imagine since you went to TAC, that's been discussed with the fire chief.
It wasn't specifically brought up, no.
My thought process is, and I'm an EV owner, I'm a fan of the product, is that you're taking, there's been a lot of discussions and incidents of late, a lot being a relative term, of these things catching on fire and the difficulty to put a fire out with an EV. And I'm thinking of these things elevated, connected to a charger, the firefighting capability of such thing. Have we created a scenario? I'm just feeling it out. This just came to me.
It didn't come up in TAC. I'm sure it'll come up in permitting.
It didn't come up in TAC, but
the EV charging did not come up in TAC specifically.
But your second sentence was?
I'm sure it will come up when we go for a building permit.
Permitting.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, Beth.
Can you Regarding the parking, can you explain to me how we're getting 17 spots? I know there's some stacked, and I sort of remember a conversation about it, but if you could just remind us a little bit more, that would be really helpful.
Yeah, so the 3 spaces you see here are sort of layered with tic-tac-toe, 3 high, which would be 9, but there always has to be a space open. So you get 8 and 8, and then the one that's the standalone
That becomes
ADA.
the 17.
Yep.
That's right, so 6. Okay, yep, the math's working in my head now, thank you.
Okay. Yeah, there's one less that one has to always be open to be able to shuffle.
Right.
Joe?
I was, and still am, very excited about the parking concept. I do have concerns with specifically position 3 entry, the turning diagram. It's almost comical.
Yeah.
What it takes to get into it requires a professional driver. I mean, it's, the tolerance is, you're coming up, you're showing what the vehicle has to do just to get into the spot. And you're assuming a very specific sized vehicle with an axle in a very particular location. And I'm sure you've already done this, but I have to ask a question. If you just went 1 or 2 feet in every direction, I would imagine you would greatly relieve what is now a incredibly complicated. Could you go to the position number 3 entry? The bottom right-hand corner shows what you'll just see what I mean. It's like a 4-point turn.
Yeah,
These will be
there's no-
owners, correct? These are owners who are gonna get
Yeah.
used to doing this,
Right.
I imagine.
Right. Yeah, there's no doubt that you have a point there, and the, developer engaged
Right there.
a Walker Consultants, a parking
Yeah.
consultant to assist with this. And there were adjustments made to orientations and aisle widths and so on and so forth through the TAC process.
Yeah.
This was presented to the city technical advisory committee, and your traffic engineer did say the same thing in a sense, but also that it shows that it works, and some people, welcome to downtown, tight living, you
Yeah.
gotta make a lot of
And
turns.
again, don't get my question, don't misinterpret it. I want this to succeed. It's
Yeah.
very interesting.
The car could be a smaller car, too.
Yeah,
so-
it does assume, right now, it's assuming a 17-foot car.
Yeah.
Yeah. then
And it
the amount
will
of
be, I think what you said is very true. This is not public parking, it's
No.
owner parking, so
Mhm.
people will be used to what they have to do.
Yeah.
You know, yeah.
I want to see more of this, but
Yeah.
I would hope that in future designs, it would be more efficient. It would be a lot easier to get in and out, but
Yeah.
still a very clever solution. I like it. I would just hate to be the one assigned to position 3. Thank you, that's all.
There'd be 3 cars assigned to position.
Gotta learn to back
One
in.
of the 3 then.
You're next, Andrew, after Logan. Go ahead.
Thanks. I had a couple quick questions on the transformer. The noise study here is pretty helpful. 2 questions though. One, when we're referring to the transformer doors, are we referring to the fence outside of it or the transformer door itself?
The door itself, so, or the fence too. So the project team is in the later stages of, if we can get through this approval, there may be some opportunities to work it further. Whatever is done in that space needs an HDC update, so it may be a sliding gate might work.
Okay, that was
you
going to be
know.
my follow-on question, yeah.
But I think, if I'm not mistaken, the door itself also comes out, the transformer door. Is that meant to go, is it more the gate or the door? I'm sorry, I don't know the exact answer.
It looks on the
but
plan
it's
like
close.
both do.
Yeah, it might be both.
If the transformer doors are open to the 180 or 130 degree position, they'll be on site. They won't be in, other than as they're opening, they would cross over the property line, but they'd be resting on site. It would be the protective gate in front of it. And we're looking, right now, we're showing just sort of a 2-door gate operation that would stick out quite a bit. We're looking at 2 options. One would be a bifold situation, so we cut that encroachment in half, or if Eversource will allow us not to have the entire width open and available to them, then we could have a sliding gate option, so we wouldn't have to come onto the city property at all for that.
Yeah, best of luck with the utility. And second question, which may completely negate my first one, though, it looks like there's a decorative iron fence there, which, with respect to noise, is doing basically nothing to mask anything. I assume the HDC would have something to say, but was there any consideration given to something more solid that would further reduce? We're downtown, so a transformer, I don't think it's going to do much noise-wise, but was there any consideration given to something more solid? Obviously, it would have to be pretty solid to reduce the noise any, but was that discussed at all?
It wasn't. Again, we're sort of deferring to the utility and airflow around the transformer and making sure that will cool.
Thanks.
And just as a reminder, that the sound study is only for the exterior noise. So as you get inside the buildings surrounding there, there's going to be even a further drop off in the noise in there. So the perceived noise within the building is going to be even less than what we're showing in the sound study.
Of course. Thanks.
3 questions, hopefully very quick. The trash and recycling, are those going to be brought out to the sidewalk?
Yes. Or Church Street.
To
Church Street pickup.
Church Street.
Yeah.
The 2 parking spaces outside, not part of your project, but the street spaces, or the city spaces, do those inhibit the view coming out of the garage? Was this addressed at TAC?
There was discussed at TAC, yeah, the spaces, was kind of a Department of Public Works they redid the street. And then we told them the spaces were there, and they said, really?
Yeah.
I don't know that they were expecting them to be back there, but they are there. I'm not sure that it's going to be a problem. The traffic engineer looked at the turning movements. It was a question in the first TAC meeting. And the design speeds are basically so slow that
yes,
plenty
certainly
of
not
maneuvering.
a racetrack back there, but just as someone is coming out of the garage and almost exclusively trying to get themselves out of the garage at this point, looking left, the cars are coming from the right. I don't know if that produces any issue.
I don't think it will. It wasn't brought up as a problem in the Technical Advisory Committee.
I am bringing it up now.
You're bringing it up now,
Yeah.
so I don't think it would be a problem. I think there would be an opportunity to hang a mirror off the building if people perceived that
Great
there
answer.
was.
Third question and last question is delivery vehicles. As we have talked about ad nauseum on this board, turns out people get things delivered every single day, Amazon, UPS, etc. Where are those going? How are those going to be directed about this site? I'm not saying that it's entirely your responsibility to find a lane to do that, but maybe a suggestion or some sort of dedicated area to do so would be very helpful.
We can go back to the site plan, Peter. I think the answer to the question is that it already exists in this area. This is I believe, provides temporary loading. So
Is that going to remain? Is that going to remain? I kind of thought that was a temporary thing, but.
What's that?
I thought that striping was temporary while this site was fenced off and other.
I believe that's necessary, that you can't pull cars further out because vehicles, especially trucks turning right from State onto Pleasant would be impeded.
Okay.
So I think that's a permanent lane divider-ish striped area. Yep.
Okay.
It is a loading zone now, yeah.
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 Okay.
What's going on, folks?
I have a question.
Okay.
Those 2 spots behind the building.
Parking spots.
C3.
The 2 spots behind the building, the notation about them being moved?
Are those public spaces?
Yes.
Yes, they're pay-for spaces, yes.
Pay for spaces?
Meter spaces.
They're metered.
Oh, they
Well,
are. Okay.
there's not, I don't think it's metered, I think it's a pay sign.
Yep.
You know,
Well, it used to be metered, I'm sorry. Yeah.
By the app.
What do you mean by?
Give it the time.
So this is an app metered only space.
This is a pay for space. This is public parking that you have to pay to park at. Yep. And
I apologize to the chair. That's what we were trying to figure out what's going on back there.
But we
So-
did, we did notice that you're actually relocating one of the spots is getting relocated to address Andrew's concern about access to the trash room. That one of the spots is getting moved.
yes, as it turns out, the new building has a door there that would open up into a parking space. So we're just showing
Can't have that.
restriping that with a dedicated access.
We thought we just discovered the only free downtown parking. But not true. Not true.
But when it was
Hot
first
might pick it up.
striped, it was free for a little bit, but then the sign went up quickly. They were on it.
Yeah, I guess to complete my thought from 5 minutes ago, and sort of to whomever had asked it about the size of the car, I'm kind of drawing a line in terms of marketability versus my site plan approval, and somebody that is going to be moving into this unit for rent, for ownership, whatever it might be, is just going to have to consider that. And so that's their consideration as a consumer, not necessarily my consideration as to the functionality of this garage. If they want to have this type of garage and it works, then I'm comfortable with that. Everyone else after the fact is sort of up to their own volition.
Very true. Any other questions, comments? If not, I'm going to open the public hearing. Okay, is anybody here or on Zoom wishes to speak to or against this application? Somebody on Zoom?
Oh, we have a few people. If anyone on Zoom like to speak, raise your hand.
On this application?
Yes. Go ahead, Barbara Jenny.
Hi, this is Barbara Jenny from Working Stiff Properties. We're a direct butter at 92 and 94 Pleasant Street. I did send a letter into the planning board, so you would have it. Did you all get that?
I believe
We
we
did not
did.
see that. I looked at 4:30, I didn't see it, public comment.
I was told to send it to planning instead of sending it through the form because it was a better way to do it. Okay, well, I'm here now. I wanted to make sure you all knew this project has obviously been before all the land use boards, second time around. And one of the things that's never come up, and I've written about it before, and it's still yet to be addressed by the applicant or any of the land use boards, is the fact that the back facade of 84 Pleasant, which is the contiguous townhouse to ours, still exists. And it was sort of enveloped by the CMU addition in the 1950s, but it's in there. And the HTC didn't ask about it. Nobody's asked about it, but it's in there. And the city does have some rules about what to do when there's a proposed demolition of a historic facade. And I'd like that to be on the record. I would like it to be addressed. I'd like to make sure that the appropriate steps are taken for public notice, for people to be able to see it. You can see it. There was once a window that now has a piece of plywood covering it up. Maybe that was the idea, was to get light in there and you could see it. I don't know, but maybe somebody at some point, even though they built that ugly CMU addition, realized that they should try to preserve the original building somehow. The applicant has already let the Times building go, demolition by neglect, and the city has just, said, oh well, about that. I would at least like the public to know that this part of the townhouse exists. These are really interesting townhouses that were built after the Great Fire. So I'd like you all to know that it's in there. I'd like you all to see it and take a moment to see it. It's too bad that it was never brought to the attention of the land use boards. Maybe there could have been some brainstorming to preserve the townhouses as they were. They were 3 row houses. If you do any research at the Athenaeum, there were some pretty interesting residents there. Maybe there were even some more efficient means for this elaborate parking. If they decided to restore the townhouse as it was, they would have had some open space to perhaps enter through and have just a regular parking lot, very safe underground, without any of the worries by the fire chief of fire suppression and getting cars out and people out and that kind of thing. So I would like that acknowledged by this planning board, some board. That would be really great. I also want to let the planning board know that we did have a conversation with the architect and their team, that we are perfectly willing to cooperate with the developer on the common wall, that CMU wall. The developer, for some reason, thought that they had to keep that wall because our L, that sort of shed L, is attached to it. We're certainly willing to work with them so that giant wall is not as, horrible as it has to be. It's as you know, we've fought the height of that, and for some reason the ZBA approved that even though it wasn't necessary. And I know that HDC does care that they try to put some kind of brick facing on there, but if they put the brick facing on the CMU wall, that would be encroaching into our property. So we talked about that with the architect, and he thought maybe the solution was just to come down to the height of our L. It looks in the drawings there, he's just come down to the height of the top of the solar hot water panels, which is really not an attractive solution in my opinion. So just for the record, we are willing to work with them, certainly not at our expense, but to try to make that happen so that they can take down that entire wall and rebuild a wall within their property line that meets HDC requirements, and it can be just not a giant ugly CMU wall.
That beep, Barbara, was your first 3 minutes. I don't know if you're almost done or if you're...
Okay, I'm almost done, but just, trying to get the point out there that we are open to communication and cooperation, which has not been so great to date. And we would appreciate, again, the board's addressing the historic nature of what's inside that CMU wall that's covering up the original building, and make sure that appropriate measures are taken to notify the public that it's there and document it.
Thank you. Anybody else on Zoom or here?
No other hands have been raised.
Joe has his hand up.
Who has hands?
Joe.
I appreciate the comments from the person who just called in. I also appreciate when I go to the renderings, I see on the aerial view the fact that that cornice, as it wraps a corner of the historic building facing Pleasant Street, is completely exposed now. So there's an opportunity for some restoration on that end of the building, on the clapboarded end of that building. Of course, the CMU portion is completely enveloped, but the higher value is seeing that townhouse turn the corner, and this development stays away from that rather than go right up to and cover that wall up completely. I think that's going to be very successful there. It will require some restoration on that side of the building, and I don't know if the project is taking responsibility for that or not, but at least we will see that end of the building. We'll see the gable end of that building one way or another.
We're in the midst of a public hearing.
Yep.
So
I just wanted to address her concerns. They're good concerns, and
okay.
Yep.
Noted. Anybody else wish to speak first round? If anybody wishes to speak at all, which includes the applicants, you have to speak now. I'm going to ask for second round. There's nobody who wishes to speak in the first round? Okay, any second round speakers? On Zoom or here? Raise your hand if you're on Zoom if you wish to speak.
Just, Mr. Chairman, if
You didn't speak in the first round.
I didn't speak in the first round?
I don't think so. I asked you to. What's the board's pleasure?
Is this a question or a clarifying comment?
I was just going to say, since you're going to close the public hearing, if you had any questions for the architect, please ask him now so he can answer.
That's what we do before the public hearing.
There were no questions, which was good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you, John. I'm going to close the public hearing. Now we may proceed with the deliberations.
Regarding finding of fact, motion to vote to find the site plan application meets the requirements set forth in the site plan regulations, section 2.9, evaluation criteria, and adopt the findings of fact as presented.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Motion, vote to grant site plan approval with the following conditions in addition to the original conditions of approval stated in the letter of decision, excuse me, dated February 16, 2023. These conditions to be satisfied subsequent to final approval of site plan, but prior to the issuance of building permit of the commencement of any site work or construction activity. I'm just going to state them, call them out by number: 2.1, 2.2, 2.3, 2.4,
And 2.5.
and 2.5.
2.6.
Then conditions to be satisfied subsequent to commencement of site work and construction activity, but prior to release of surety bond of certificate of occupancy is 2.6, as in the planning
Memo.
board member.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion.
Can I make a correction? Just in that first part of the motion, that reference to that letter decision shouldn't be there, so it just should be the following conditions.
Well, the maker of the motion modifies the motion to remove the section about the letter of decision.
Thank you.
Second.
Now discussion.
Choosing to mention it now and not necessarily in a formal discussion with the applicant, but it seems like a good roof to have some solar panels on because it's entirely flat. I don't know what the requirement or the solar professional that we have here would recommend, but it does seem like a great use of a green building tactic, so it'd be nice to see.
Any other discussion?
I just like to, based off of having the comments that we had regarding, the look of the building and whatnot, that this board doesn't have the control of the look. That's the HDC. So when they're talking about, restorations and windows and to keeping the history of it, that's not under our purview. That's under the HDC, and I just wanted to make that extremely clear, is all.
Good point. Thank you. Any other discussion?
Yeah, just to further that point, it's really challenging at a budding, when we have zero lot lines and you have abutting properties, by building code, you're not allowed to have windows, for obvious reasons that, your adjacent building might someday be built up blocking those windows. And so we have some historic buildings downtown that are zero lot line with windows, and, hopefully the adjacent buildings don't get built taller. But this, in a new building, as this is, it's some of the issues I think are centered around that fireproofing or the code for fire wording is losing my mind.
Resistance.
Yeah, the fire resistance rating of that wall is part of an issue I think that was addressed by the public member, and so, but I think that they're achieving it the best way they can. This has been, I don't think anybody would have expected 9 years after the fire to be finally at this point of maybe getting a building going there. So it's been a long, torturous path. I'm just glad to see it finally coming to the end of design and the start of construction soon. So.
Agree with that. Any other discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Does anybody need a quick break?
Yes, please.
One does.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that. All right.
I already took mine, sorry.
We'll have a short break.
Short break.
reconvene the meeting. The next item, we may or may not have a person here, for Maria Konstapelskaya and Ralph Minderhoud as owners, 65 Onyx. Is there anybody here for this application? Okay. Next is a preliminary.
Do we need to make a motion to move it, or does it automatically get continued?
I would,
We have to make a motion.
Why don't we move to continue to the next
I'll
one?
make that motion.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Continued.
All right, we just move right along.
We have a preliminary conceptual consultation request of Reagan Electric Co. as owner for property at 94 Langdon and 98 Cornwall Street, requesting preliminary consultation for site plan review. Property is on Assessor's Map 139, lots 1 to 8, and lies in the mixed-use residential or MRB district. Who is here to present this application?
Can I say something first? As an abutter, I'm not going to speak. If you want me to sit down, I will.
You can sit there and be quiet if you
Okay,
like.
I'll just sit there and quiet.
And she,
I just want to make that clear.
Really?
I live on Langdon Street. Right that
Nope.
block.
No passing notes.
That's right.
Just want to make, I don't want to zip.
Thank you. Good evening, Alex Monastero on behalf of Chimberg Builders. I'm joined by Sean Toby of Haley Ward, who's our civil engineer, and Shauna Samus from Chimberg as well. So we're pleased to be here tonight to talk to you about 94 Langdon and 98 Cornwall Street, the existing Reagan Electric building, which many of you I'm sure are familiar with. Our proposal is to merge those two lots and create 3 new single-family detached homes. Once the parcel is merged, it'll be about 25,000 square feet. With the redevelopment, our intention is to take up the existing pavement as well as the buildings that are on site and take those down and put the 3 new single-family homes off of one shared driveway. Doing that will allow us to have a lot more green space around the site, make it more conforming, and also hopefully create a really nice residential feel over there, adjacent to the existing residential properties that are on Langdon Street. It does allow us also to reduce the impervious by about 5,000 square feet on the site, and just in general bring it in accordance with stormwater regulations and lot line setbacks and things like that. As a point of clarity, we do need a variance. We have submitted to be on the zoning board of adjustment. We have 88 feet of frontage on Langdon Street where 100 feet is required. We intended to be on the zoning board last night, but because they had a full agenda, we got pushed to the 27th. So we were hoping to have heard from the zoning board before we came to the planning board. Unfortunately, we don't have their guidance yet, but we're still looking forward to getting feedback from you all about the site design. This is still preliminary at this point, so we have some additional details to provide you as we move forward with the application, assuming that we get that variance and we have a project here, including landscape and other design elements like that. The property is served by public water and sewer, and so our intention is to have all 3 homes connected to that. And I'm happy to answer any specific questions that you all have.
Thank you. Questions of the applicant? Comments on the site plan?
You're not in the wetland buffer?
We are not impacting the wetland buffer.
Are there any hazardous materials on the site?
We have done some on-site investigations and we need to do some additional site testing to determine if it is determined that there are materials, then we are not intending on doing full foundations here, and we would obviously take the necessary precautions when removing materials and stabilizing the site.
Yes, Frank.
Just to be clear, you're not intending to do like a full foundation in general, or is that conditional on finding more or finding hazardous materials?
Yeah, based on the water table on site, I don't think that we will do full foundations in any scenario, but we can definitely get more detail on that as we move forward with the full design for you.
Thank you.
Andrew.
Was there a consideration to make this one building with more units?
That was not a consideration that we considered. This property was listed publicly for sale. I'm sure that there are other people who considered doing something like that, but for us, the best redevelopment of the site to be in congruence with the existing neighborhood feel, the other single-family homes on site, we felt like this was the best use of the site.
In a similar direction, could you have an ADU there as well as the 3 units?
So these are 3 detached single-family homes on one lot. They're not on their own lot lines, so I don't believe that there could be additional ADUs on the site.
That's correct.
Mr. Chair?
What is the 250-foot DES shoreline water quality protection line? What restrictions do you have with that?
Yeah, so we can be within the 250-foot buffer of the shoreland. There are, as the shoreland buffer progresses, there are different requirements between 100 and then 150 and 250 feet. And so when we impact that, generally we have to pay a fee and get a permit.
That's just a state.
That's correct.
I just have one more comment. Earlier tonight, we ironically saw a very similar style site as this. It was at 224 Broad Street, and that is an existing 3-unit HOA where it's a more horizontal presentation to the street front on Broad Street, sort of like you have here on Langdon, and then it's a very long driveway, much like you have here. Those units are attached, which was where my head initially went, just due to scale and massing and overall site consumption. I don't know if connecting these buildings while still having them as single-family style structures, if you will, even though they're condoed. What was the design, I guess, genesis?
Sure. I think in general, our preference is to, when we can, the site dictates what we can do. Oftentimes, there are site constraints that require us to push them together. In this site, it's sort of a unique shape. It has that, like you mentioned, the long, but it also, as you come to the far end on the left-hand side, sort of juts in. It just felt like that made the most amount of sense, and to give some green space in between the buildings where we could. I don't think that there would be a great advantage in this particular site to connecting them. You might get a little bit more green space on either side, but I think having those corridors of green space in between the buildings. Additionally, you can see we have the 3 parking spaces. That right now, the whole entire site at this point is buildings and concrete, and so we're restoring a lot of the site to create more green space. And so I think in general, creating that green barrier around the site is a big public benefit to that neighborhood and to the environment in that area.
Does Cornwall Street not have a view corridor easement or language?
I was just looking that up, and I think it does. I think it's Dover, Cabot.
Yeah. Do you know that?
Yeah, that section of, I don't know that. That section of Cornwall Street is not a city street, which is why we need the frontage variance. So when we first considered the site, we thought we would be good to go because we had frontage on both Cornwall and Langdon. Turns out that is a paper street. We cannot take city frontage from Cornwall, so I don't know if in that section of Cornwall, where that's not a city.
You know what I'm referencing?
A view corridor, yes.
Yeah, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a question.
We can follow up, and
Okay.
it might need that house might need to shift a little bit. We can follow up outside of this.
It's pretty tight. That house would have to change dimensions to fit that.
Yeah, that if there's a view corridor down Cornwall, then that house would have to change significantly, for sure.
Yes, Tony.
I'm thinking about the neighborhood. Is trash removal going to be by a third-party service? It's not going to be city trash removal?
Yeah, there'll be a condo association, an HOA here, and they'll contract trash removal.
Are there other condo associations in that area of the neighborhood? The impact seems slight to add these 3 houses here, but now you have maybe a large vehicle, coming down here, and I don't know how you. Is it like they wheel the trash barrel to the end of the street? I don't see a dumpster, unless I'm missing it.
Yeah, this would be, some sort of collection where they would put it in, the bin on the wheels and wheel it to, whether they would wheel it to, Langdon or to their driveways and someone would come down is sort of to be determined. We can certainly explore that further. I think we need to get our variance, and then we can get into some of those specific site details. And also, as Mr. Simonis pointed out earlier in the evening, I was outside listening, there will be Amazon trucks coming down, so certainly there will be a residential related impact for 3 homes. They still get Amazon packages and have their trash picked up just like all of you do. So, but yes,
Yeah.
those will be considerations.
Yeah, again, I don't know if there was an applicant earlier or a discussion about garbage pickup at 3 AM. You know, if it was city service, that's not gonna happen.
Yes.
Public service sometimes might, like,
5:30 AM in our neighborhood.
Waste Management also does toters for HOAs all the time. I just did it recently.
Yeah.
so just where my thought was going on it.
I feel very comfortable saying that we will not hire someone who will pick up trash at 3 AM.
Any other yes, Tim?
But is this discussion suggesting, I'm sorry if I missed it, is it not depending in any way on curb pickup? We're not suggesting that
No.
garbage pickup from the city couldn't occur here as well at the street, right?
It's a city road. I mean, I
Yeah.
don't see why not. Yeah.
Okay.
Usually, my understanding is when you usually do these developments, you have to take care of all the maintenance yourself. But that was my understanding. I could be wrong.
I don't know.
How does garbage work, Peter? Tell us.
I don't know.
My-
That's a service that the city provides.
Here's the question for the applicant. Tell us how the trash will work.
Yeah, so I think it's an option, right? So generally, in a site this small where the public street is right there, these people are not going to be bringing their trash very far in order to have city pickup. If you tell me that they can't have city pickup for some reason, then we will contract somebody. Otherwise, likely they will bring their garbage to Langdon Street and the city will pick it up.
Just, it needs to be addressed, because if they end up having one of the large trash trucks coming down the private street, it's gonna be hard to turn around, so probably back up, which creates backup beepers.
Mhm.
So, you know, that whole
Okay.
thing, just figure that detail out.
We
how
certainly
that's gonna
will.
work.
Thank you.
Any other?
It's the width of the driveway.
20 feet.
Thank you.
I think what you'll find is the city truck won't go down into the development. It'll
Right.
pick it up curbside.
I think he's thinking about a private truck.
Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah, and so sometimes in these private developments, when they are more expansive than this, we contract somebody because we don't want them to have to pull their trash all the way to the nearest public street. But in this scenario, we're talking about 100 feet. So I think they will probably just do that.
I'm confident you can address it, just,
I
you
am
know,
too.
You'll come up with answers to that. Any other feedback for the applicant? And Peter's still looking about the view corridor.
No, yeah, I said we could follow up.
Okay.
There is one on Cornwall. It's just, what's the status of that street?
Won't
Which I don't
answer,
know that
won't
that
answer it
matters.
tonight,
Yeah.
won't answer it tonight, okay.
Peter knows how to get a hold of me.
Yeah.
Luckily for Peter.
Well, thank you.
All right, thanks so much.
We have a request of Hill Hanover Group LLC as owner for property at 181 Hill Street, requesting preliminary consultation for site plan review. This property is on Assessors Map 125, Lot 14, and lies in the Character District 4L1. 4L1? Okay, yes, CD 4L1.
It
Who's
is
here to
L1.
present this application?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Derek Durbin, the attorney for the owner of the property, Hill Hanover Group LLC. The sole member of Hill Hanover Group LLC, I believe, is on Zoom. May want to say a couple words at some point after I'm done. I also have Mark Giannini and Richard Desjardins from Portsmouth Architects here. They intend to, I believe, present after I give you sort of like a high-level overview of the property, existing conditions, and what's proposed for the site. Jeff Sabin's also here to answer any questions. He is the property manager for the property, Jeff's from JPK Properties. The property at 181 Hill Street is a 16,127 square foot lot. It's got 3 separate 2-story multifamily buildings on it, as you see on the site plan. Each contains 4 units, so there's 12 units on the property total. As you noted, the property does lie within the CD4L1 zoning district, but you'll also notice if you look at the city GIS that it's bordered to the north and west by the CD5 zoning district. The property, I know you're all familiar with Hill Street and sort of what it's surrounded by, but it's surrounded by a pretty diverse mixture of uses, primarily I would say medium to higher density residential uses, but also some commercial uses as you get closer to the downtown side of the property. It's bounded on 3 sides by different streets. Hill Street to the north, Hanover Street to the south, and Autumn Drive to the east. The portion of Hill Street that borders the property is privately owned. Half of that basically to the center line from the buildings that you're looking at is owned by Hill Hanover Group LLC. Then the other side of it, the northern side of the street, is owned by the owner of the Foundry Place property. So it is kind of a unique situation with that particular street. The city does do trash and recycling pickup for Hill Street, but it doesn't actually maintain the street. So it's one of those unique situations in the city that there's a couple other examples around. In its existing condition, the property does have 24 parking spaces associated with it. There are 10 surface spaces that are situated either along Hill Street or between the existing buildings. And then uniquely, there's another 14 spaces that are located within the Foundry Place garage, and that's per a 3-way agreement between the owner of this property, the owner of the Foundry Place property, and the city. The buildings on this property were, at least per the city assessing records, were originally constructed in 1850. As you can imagine, over the course of time, the buildings have fallen to some level of disrepair. They're basically in need of either a very substantial renovation or as being proposed here, basically to be demolished and reconstructed, which is the more financially feasible and practical approach to dealing with the buildings. So what is proposed is a redevelopment of the property to include 3 single 3-story buildings. I'm sorry, 1 single 3-story building with 18 residential units in it. The building would contain 23 subterranean parking spaces, in addition to retaining the 14 existing spaces in the Foundry Place building. Despite the increase in density that's proposed for the site, the project would, the open space of the property would increase from what exists, also improve upon the existing parking situation, likely removing some vehicles from the street. The property is non-conforming in multiple respects in its current condition, and what is proposed will probably require similar relief from the zoning board, so there is that step that would need to be taken, obviously, before it makes its way back here, assuming that's successful. So I think that's probably the biggest elephant in the room, is that is probably the density that's proposed here being over what is allowable on the site. But I would submit to at least to this board, that the height, massing, and density of the building is consistent with the spirit and intent of CD4L1 zoning, which really is to encourage a step down or a stepping down between the CD5 zoning district and the buildings within it. Particularly, you have Foundry Place to the north with 51 condominium units, and then as you transition over to the GRC district. So you've got Foundry Place on the one side, 4 stories, 51 units, and then you've got GRC, which is a higher density zoning district, but lower height restrictions. So this kind of falls in between the two. With that, I think this does provide a unique opportunity for the city to add more housing in an existing, basically developed area without increasing any demand, I guess, parking demand on anything that's off-site. And Obviously, there's a desire to add multifamily housing to the city. It's certainly something that's been encouraged by the master plan in the past, certainly something the state legislature and the city is encouraging now. So I believe it's a good project, a good opportunity for the city. And with that, I would turn it over to Mark if he has any comments on the architectural detail, technical detail associated with the property. Also, Corey Belden here. I forgot to introduce him as he walked in just a couple minutes ago. But Corey, obviously from Altus Engineering, who can go through any of the plan sheets with you and any of the technical detail. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Excuse me. Good evening. Mark Giannini from Portsmouth Architects. Derek really did a good job giving a pretty comprehensive summary of the project as we see it. It is a unique lot, as he mentioned. We kind of feel it's transitional where it's located based on zoning. As he mentioned, we border CD5 to the north, so you have larger buildings there. And we also have, zoning allows for 4 stories along Hill Street. So the back of our property actually has the ability to have at least a portion of it be 4 stories if we wanted. We're not currently proposing that at the time. The condo building just to the left or the east of or west of the building is already 3 stories. And you can see in the upper left image here, we took the city's 3D model, and then we, from public record, took other projects that have either been completed, such as the Foundry Place and the parking garage, and then others that are proposed, such as across the street and also the Heineman property, just to give you a sense of the development that's happened or is coming, and to show you the scale of our project, as it relates to the others. So moving on to the next sheet. So this is a conceptual rendering looking, from the street view straight on. As Derek mentioned, we're stepping this property to try to keep the sizes and scale of the building feeling residential, even though it would be one of the larger buildings, in this zone. We're aligning eaves with the neighboring property to the left, which is, again, that's a 3-story property, and we're proposing 3 stories for us. And in this image, you can see, some of the larger buildings in the back. Moving on to the floor plans. This is the basement floor plan, which would include the garage parking underneath. So we have 17 parking spots where you'd enter from Autumn Street on the right. That'd be a 2-way entrance sloping down from grade there. Grade itself on this lot basically slopes. The high point would be the back corner of Hill Street, and it kind of slopes about 5 feet towards Autumn Street, both on Hill and Hanover. The grade kind of flows in the same direction. So we're using that in our favor to help get into the parking garage without having to go down quite as far. So we have 17 parking spots in there, 2 entrances. One includes the stair towers, one has the elevator in the front there. We also have a large area designated for mechanical spaces for the building, as well as other services such as trash recycling and package delivery and mail. Going up from the basement level, we have the first through 3rd floor plans are all very similar in their current conceptual phase. So we have 6 units that range from just under 1,000 square feet to just under 1,600 square feet. So these are planned to be a mix of 1, 2, and 3 bedroom units. We haven't done layouts yet exactly. From there, they're just showing you additional concept plans for the upper levels. Very similar. Here we have the site plan, similar to the basement level, but you can see Hill Street to the north. As Derek was mentioning, it's a private street. There's also a 20-foot wide utility easement on there. Half of it's on our property, half of it's on the Foundry Place property. We're maintaining that and basically providing 6 parking spaces, including one that's van accessible. parallel parking along the street. This is similar to the current parking configuration that's along Hill Street now. Again, we'll be entering the parking garage from Autumn Street and then maintaining sidewalks along Hanover and also proposing a sidewalk along Autumn to get to those parking spots in the back. The next image and the final one is just kind of a blown up bird's eye view showing the lot and the surrounding community. You know, obviously, as we've mentioned, the larger developments behind us in Hanover, all nearby. So again, we feel like it's a unique project. It's kind of transitional between the different zones and also the allowed building heights. And also just the size of the lot itself is larger than most of the lots along Hanover Street. So with that, I don't know, Bruce, did you want to speak if you're on Zoom?
And no, thanks for the opportunity. Just say sorry I couldn't be there in person. I'm happy to be available for questions and appreciate any kind of feedback on this design. One other consideration that we've been given is instead of the below ground parking on sites, we have sufficient off-site with the Foundry Place and some surface parking. That's what we've been going back and forth a bit and landed on this proposal, but appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. Questions of the development team?
Well, I'm glad you landed on this proposal. I'm excited by the way you're accommodating the parking, and I'm seeing that on sheet 1 of 2, this one, yeah. It looks as though we have the opportunity to gain 3 street parking spaces back as well. That's something the city could, I imagine, do where you had curb cuts previously. You're infilling the curb cuts.
Yes. Oh, sorry, along Hanover, yes.
Along Hanover, yeah.
Yep.
Not to mention the, the 6 spaces that are on your property on the backside. Here we have a situation where we have a lot of parking with this proposal, which is good, and it's hidden very well, and it's.
We did have a question about parking regulations, because I know there's some, with state regulations, there's some change in parking counts. Is it going to be 1 parking spot per unit?
One per unit.
Even if it's above, doesn't matter the number of units?
Right, over 500 square feet, it'll be one, and then 500 square feet or less, it'll be half a space.
Okay. Yeah, so we have enough parking on site to accommodate that, and then the 14 parking spots that are in Foundry Place are really above and beyond what's required.
Sounds like it, yes. Tony and then Bill.
This is just a conceptual conversation, and I know this is not inside the historic district. I do feel a little sense of loss in those buildings that are there now. They're quite attractive. They need some love, but they're quite attractive. There really is a warm walk down that street. It's not jarring to the pedestrian. I would prefer this property to keep the garage the way it is, but to separate above grade 3 structures, even a minimal distance of separation, just to help that transition. Because when you lump them all together like that, it's a big mass. You're adding a story and then you're tightening them up, and so it's just my thoughts. I don't know if it's possible. I don't know if you're going to get your zoning variance. I think there could be something to achieve it to break up the mass a little bit more and keep the same number of units and get a little bit of gap in there. That's it.
Bill, you had your hand up?
Yes. So what's the traffic flow? When we dealt with the 361 Hanover, there was apparently an easement through some of their property that belonged to the people that own this property. And then we've got Hill Street itself being half one owner and half another owner. How do you do maintenance? How do you do snow plowing? Where do cars come and go from?
Well, I can speak to the traffic flow at least, if we go to the site plan. I mean, starting on Hanover, which is a public way, obviously, is one way going, to the right of the page. Autumn Street is 2 ways, so at least for the proposed project, you know, you'd have the option of going, I guess, to Hill Street or Hanover coming out of the parking garage. Currently, Hill Street from Autumn to the left is private. Right now, I believe there is some two-way traffic. It's minimal, the amount of traffic, just because of the location and the density of people driving through there. There is an easement, access easement, and Derek, maybe you can speak better to this, but from this property, as well as the condo association to the left, they both have an easement to basically cross over the Heineman property. And that easement will continue, best I know. As far as snow plowing and maintenance, I'm not sure what is done currently.
Again, Derek Durbin for the record. I just got some clarification from Jeff on that. Hill Hanover Group owned where the Foundry Place residences are now. Bruce Summer, owner of Hill Hanover Group, maintained the entire street. Now, basically what happens is he maintains his side of Hill Street, and Foundry Place maintains their own. They have two separate contractors, basically, that maintain each side of the street. Another unique situation, they also have their own contractors plowing. And there is, to the best of my knowledge and Jeff's, no formal agreement, you know, for one contractor to maintain it all. So just the way it sort of works out right now.
And you do use the easement across 361 Hanover?
The only thing I can say to that is that I do know that that access easement is in litigation right now. I'm not handling that litigation, so I just know that it hasn't gone to any type of trial yet, and that access is being litigated. I can tell you what I see from the title records, but I don't know how the court will ultimately.
Your plan is not dependent on that, on the outcome of that.
That's correct. Yeah.
Andrew.
Previously, Attorney Durbin stated 23 subterranean units, and then you just stated 17 with 6 exterior, and then in the site plan it says 12.
We want to keep you guessing.
Mine was a mistake.
Got it.
So it is 17 subterranean units and 6 along Hill Street.
Units or spaces?
I'm sorry, spaces.
You really want to keep us guessing.
Yeah.
So, just as a summary, on the design review site plan, on the right-hand side, it says parking requirements, the ratio can change, and the unit count has to change to then have an updated calculation.
Yes, thank you.
That's more for me, too.
Okay.
I just got to make sure I'm with everything.
I just want to clear the record because I think it was stated earlier that the property behind on Hill Street is CD5, but it's not. It's CD4. So I just want to make sure
the Foundry
that's clear.
Place?
The one that's between Hill Street and Foundry Place.
On map geo, it might still be showing CD5.
But it is.
Did that change
It was
with
changed last fall.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, yes.
Sorry, just because
Yep.
I was the one that brought it forward to change it. So.
Yep.
I'm having a little heart attack.
Aren't you
Because
glad we're doing
361 Hanover is also now CD4. So I just want to make sure that's clear.
Any other feedback for the, yes, Frank?
I'm just taking a look at that first floor, the parking garage, the trash recycle room, it looks like. I'm looking at the property on Google Maps now, and there isn't a whole lot of space where I'm assuming that entrance is going to be. How would the trash pickup be dealt with? Would that be through the city? And then would there be bins there that they'd be individually brought out? That kind of thing. I'm not sure if you've gotten that far ahead.
We haven't really gotten that far ahead except for allocating a space for it. I mean, typically a building this size would probably have a private pickup. So there would be either totes or smaller dumpsters that are on casters that would be brought out when the truck came.
And would there be enough space on the side of the building for like a sidewalk, unless I'm misreading the plans?
Yeah, so the intention is that we would extend the sidewalk from Hanover along Autumn Street And right now, we're showing it wrapping around Hill Street as well.
Okay, I see that now. Thank you.
Anything else? Any other questions for us?
We're good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
City Council referrals. The Historic District map we've talked about, there's been quite a bit of discussion between the last time this board talked about it and tonight. I can tell you that based on conversations I've had with the chair of the HDC and also with staff, my recommendation and the recommendation I'm getting is to not act on that at this time and wait for the master plan discussion on the topic.
So moved.
We've gotten a lot of emails
Second.
about it too.
There was a motion to second, okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
No action.
Love that idea.
Action. Portsmouth Submarine and Maritime zoning change in Albacore, so they can do their, I won't say what they want to do. I'll let Peter explain it.
Well, they submitted a letter requesting, currently their zone single residence B. The use is not permitted, so they originally got a variance for the use, and subsequently, when they have to do any expansions, they have to come back to the zoning board for a variance to expand the use. They've requested to be either Gateway 1 or Gateway 2. Just looking at where the adjacent gateway districts lie, Gateway 2 would probably be more suitable for this property because it's across Market Street on where the Connect Church is. And so also museum in Gateway 1 is not permitted by right, so another consideration would be to make that a permitted use. If the board felt that was appropriate.
Are we ready to make a recommendation to council tonight? Is that the idea, or?
Right, you would make a recommendation. They referred this to you for a recommendation back. Just on the rezoning, staff brought up the use issue. Currently, in the G1 and G2, it requires a special exception for a museum, so that's a little less of a bar than a variance, but they would still have to go to the zoning board.
So your recommendation would be Gateway?
2.
Gateway 2.
Yes, Tom?
I need to recuse myself from this conversation.
Are you a submariner?
My wife's on the board.
Yes, Bill?
So one of the letters that we have is from a neighbor that points out that this is abuts a residential area that would be adversely affected by the change, so I understand properly.
Okay. Ask the question. So other properties that are owned by not-for-profits in our city are considered civic districts. You know, museums are one of those, the historic houses who are considered museums. So why are we not looking at some sort of civic district for this instead of, based off, because it is a not-for-profit, is it not? I mean, it has, I'm assuming, I'm not wrong in that, am I? Does anyone know?
I don't know.
I don't know.
It's private, right?
Right.
But not-for-profits are private.
Yeah,
but-
no,
Yeah.
They claim in their letter they're a nonprofit organization.
That's what I thought, because I just think, I feel like there's something outside of what they're asking for that might fit this, because I do feel like if you're talking like Strawberry Bank or, you know, Moffett Lad House, I mean, any of these, they're a lot of civic districts that we have these properties. So I guess I'm trying to figure out, why aren't we looking at that as a possibility? Anyone else agree with me, disagree with me?
No, it's a good question.
I said, instead of trying to fit it into a district that it probably shouldn't be in, why aren't we fitting into a district it probably should have always been in?
Does anything in the civic district, and I guess had the same questions looking at this. Obviously, I wasn't aware that that museums required any special, I don't think people are worried about museums taking over the city of Portsmouth. I don't know what zoning allows you to park a submarine. So it's there. We all know that.
Same thought.
Yeah, I don't, is the civic district kind of a?
Non-conforming.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how, we're trying to back solve a problem here that I don't think there's an existing solution to.
It's similar to the quandary I always have, that we have a water park, yet we don't have any zoning, there's not a district that we have that allows a water park, so.
I like water countries.
There are things that exist in our city that actually don't fit into our current zoning, so it is the wonderment. But I feel like it's a not-for-profit, it's a museum, it's open to the public, even though it's private, because, the city doesn't actually own all these civic things, right? They're owned by their own separate not-for-profit organizations that run them and keep them that way. So I just feel like we should at least consider and research whether or not that might be a more appropriate district than changing it to a gateway district.
Did they already commence their addition?
Yes.
Is it done?
I think it's close to being done, if not done.
But I think they had permission to do
Right,
that.
they got a variance.
They got a variance.
I
for that.
was merely going in the direction of, are they doing more? That I am.
I think they have future plans.
Right.
Gateway does include civic.
Does or does not?
Does.
I mean, it's so close to so many other civic districts that are in the downtown. I just sort of was like, it seemed to make sense for me.
Sounds like the distinction is the location where it is, decidedly in a gateway type setting versus some of the other civic uses.
And I don't think I'm speaking out of school here. Aren't they proposing to do some other commercial uses on the property potentially?
Potentially. Generate profit.
But they're not for profit. They can
Right, I
generate
mean,
profit,
generate
but it goes
revenue
back
for
into the
right,
not-for-profit.
for the not-for-profit.
Right. I mean,
Right.
every not-for-profit can do that, so. They sell tickets to go to Strawberry Bank. You have memberships. You have.
Is it more generate revenue than generate profit?
If you generate revenue, it goes back into the organization. That's all.
Which is a good thing, right? We want this to succeed. And I think for India Butters, I think the assumption that it's going to have a negative impact isn't necessarily fair. I think there are opportunities to review the project at other levels. In other words, a development couldn't occur here, or a change couldn't occur here without any public comment at all, or concerns being heard.
Right. If it was a gateway district and they proposed additional development, let's say it proposed a commercial use of some sort, that would require site plan review.
Right.
Just like we've been doing all night.
And if ever there was a gateway, literally,
Yeah.
gateway into the city, this location,
It certainly feels like a gateway to me.
And this would carve just that specific property.
Correct.
kind of legitimizes its use for decades as well. It's been there and it's a.
Just for comedy's sake, maybe, if they didn't come forward with this, would this ever have been addressed?
Possibly not.
And the city was kind of like, whatever.
Well, they could seek variances, you know.
Potentially in the cleanup of the zoning map following the master plan?
Fair.
Maybe.
I would default to both Joe's point and the chairman's point of, we'll have oversight at some point or another. And if they want to pursue more things, then I feel pretty confident that we will have some sort of authority there.
So should somebody want to move to recommend Gateway 2?
I mean, I look at like all the land farther down or farther east on the North Bypass, and there's a lot of business districts there that I think we have sort of targeted as places to look at being something other than business districts. So I don't have a heartache against Gateway. I just asked the Civic as a question
it's a
for
good-
discussion that maybe we should consider.
Will a broader discussion come out of the master plan on gateways and what belongs in gateways?
We're gonna get into, they're coming in March, right?
Yes.
Yeah, they'll be here in March to have a conversation with us about issues like that. That's like, the refinement of the regulations is the next step, but to talk about what we've got currently is a part of the master plan for sure. It's like, just like your comment that other people haven't seen about housing. We'll be talking about those things.
So should this be held?
You know, given the ease with which you can change zoning in a city, I don't see that it's a problem to let these people, you know, address their request, but
And
not my
part,
decision.
part of their request, though, is also to add museums to Gateway. So I think we have to consider whether or not that should be done as well. Because right now, museums are not allowed in Gateway, I don't believe.
It requires a special exception.
Which would be pretty easy to get. Is that Gateway 1 and 2?
Yes.
Oh, all right, then I guess I'm fine with not addressing that part. I thought they weren't
We
allowed
could
it
address that part too. I mean, we could make that recommendation. But the requirements of special exception are usually pretty specific. Would they be able to meet those?
Yeah, it's usually about noise and traffic and.
I was gonna ask what the logic was. What's the logic in not allowing museums in Gateway?
I was wondering the same thing.
I think they probably allow them, but they want to make sure they have a public hearing to make sure they fit in with the surroundings.
Especially given the proximity to the residential
Right.
neighborhood.
Right.
Mr. Chair, I'll vote to recommend the City Council schedule first reading to change the zoning from single residence B to Gateway 2 on map 209, lot 87, and to accompany that, vote to recommend the City Council schedule first reading to allow museum as a permitted use in Gateway 1 and Gateway 2.
Second.
Discussion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
One recusal.
Noted.
Should make a submarine zone. Any place in the country with submarine zone.
The next item is the gateway parcels. That in November, when you voted on this, there was one property. It shows up showed up as two parcels in the staff memo, but that project, they actually merged those lots, but in our GIS, it still shows up as two. And they currently are MRB. I can bring them up.
It's property under construction, right?
Yes,
Property under
it's the-
construction.
Yeah, the ones under construction, yeah.
And so the before the planning board was to either zone it to G1 or G2, and the board didn't make a decision one or the other. So I just need clarification on which, before this goes to council, which.
What's adjacent?
Gateway 1 is adjacent. And the closest Gateway 2 would be at the Market Basket. Up the road.
Then Gateway 1, I would say.
I think I know this answer, but is one of those more conforming to the project that's currently under construction there? They're the same.
Yeah.
Probably about the same.
Gateway 1 will not hurt them?
Yeah.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
I vote to recommend the City Council change these two parcels as depicted on the map to G1 and schedule first reading on the proposed map amendments as presented.
Second.
In discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
Is that the only one?
Congress Street, 21 Congress Street, requesting a one-year extension.
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. I'm going to be really quick. The only thing, I mentioned the UTL, the master plan. There was some discussion in the newspaper, and I talked to our representative earlier this evening about fees. I would ask the board for authority to engage in a conversation about fees and report back to the board about how and whether we should consider having discussions with the PDA and the city manager, because there's definitely city issues here, about a possible change to the current scheme of the P's property and the PDA's management of the non-Air Force portions of that property, not airport portions of the site.
Wonderful.
But I want authorization, I don't want to just do it. So
Authorized.
I'm authorized?
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I'll do it, and I'll report back. That, we are adjourned, thank you very much.